Hi everyone. This video is an interview with my dear friend Geraldine Grace. Geraldine is a lawyer who is now solely focused on supporting the New Earth. We had this conversation over Zoom, and I don't want to withhold this from you because this is a beautiful testimony to what she's been experiencing in the amazing area of Uluru on this solstice. Much information has been shared, and if you don't know about it, I advise you to Google a little bit because this is a sacred place where lots of people have been focusing on this solstice because of a very important opening of a portal. And so without further ado, I will show you the interview so Geraldine can share with us her experience there.
How are we? How are
Well,
you?
I am expanded. I am
Mm.
very expanded, very activated. Funny to come back to Melbourne. I came
Mm.
back from Uluru yesterday. Um, Even going into the airport in Uluru, I was to board, to check in and board. I was still very elevated from the past few days and getting on the flights and everything was still carrying that energy. And then I came back to Melbourne Airport, and everyone around me, everyone seemed to actually be in good spirits, you know. So I did feel that the energy in Melbourne also had shifted, right? In other words, that we had kind of cut off the lower end of the spectrum, and people are not going back there anymore or can't go back there anymore. So in Melbourne, even I felt the lift, not as much as in Uluru. That was nice. But I probably should explain about the conference. So what is the conference and what was I doing there?
Please.
Okay, so it was the Cosmic Consciousness Conference.
Mm.
Um, And this is the first time I went to this conference. It's actually been held regularly for the last 5 years. It's organized by a lovely couple, Catherine Hand and Nick Turner. It was amazing. I mean, Catherine and Nick, in the middle of so much confusion and difficulty and challenges this year, they really pulled it off. So, the gratitude to them, immense, immense. Um, I thought it was extremely well organized. I loved all the speakers, and I met a lot of amazing people. And as I was reflecting on it, I knew with the sort of energy and the high levels of consciousness that we had there, people with open hearts, constantly helping each other, caring for each other, holding each other, physically and spiritually, energetically. We could have the new age of love like that with that level of consciousness. We could solve any problem. Um, so starting points. Where do we, as those of us on the past, even come to talk about starting points? I mean, you could go back so far when we started wondering. So, okay, I chose the starting point as Peru, where you and I met, August 2017, the time of that solar eclipse, which you've reminded me about so many times. Okay, that's my starting point. And a lot of that is very personal. It was my personal search for purpose and my quest to find out why I'm here. But that was 2017. I went to Peru to do ayahuasca. I got on the bus to go to the retreat, and a lovely lady invited me to sit next to her, and she was the most beautiful person. and that person's name is Dorcha. And we were intended, that was intended to be our meeting in this life. I had gone to Peru because I'm a lawyer by profession and training. I work in a very, very materialistic, or had worked in a very materialistic environment, and I had been very materialistic myself. But my path was diverging, and I needed to find the spiritual side, not just in myself, but in my work. So off I went to Peru, and we had 7 ceremonies. And the ceremony that was very life-changing for me was on the 25th of August, which was the day before my birthday, the day before my 44th birthday. And because I'd gone to Peru with the intention of finding my purpose, in that ceremony, my intention was answered. And I connected with an energy. And the energy was not ayahuasca. The energy told me that they were from the stars. Now, up to that point, I hadn't really made any relationship in my mind or my heart between ETs, star people, star beings, and spirituality. I thought spirituality was this path about oneness and reincarnation and soul purpose. And ETs were about UFOs and, you know, deals that they were making with governments and so on. Never occurred to me I'd go to Peru and have beings from the stars come talk to me about my purpose. I wouldn't go into my purpose so much. The point I wanted to make was that it started me on the path of figuring out what the ETs were doing here, talking to me about a spiritual purpose. So I went back after that life-changing ceremony where my purpose was quite clearly set out. It had to do with some soul contracts. I went back to Melbourne and I threw myself back into work. I said, oh, great, I know my purpose is these contracts, and let's go off and start working. Very, very human reaction from here. So I did. And then a couple months later, boom, wasn't good enough. And I kind of landed on my butt in terms of energetically. And I had another opening. It was around November 2017, actually. Another opening, and I was told, no, this is something else you need to do. So by that, I mean I had a clear download. And so I began to think about this ET spirituality connection. And I said, I need to find out more about this. So I connected with a few people who had had ET experiences, and I suddenly found that the ET experiences were mainly, if you look past the abductions and all of that stuff, a lot of spiritual experiences. And I began to learn more and more. You know, it's funny to say this was 3 years ago. And now we just think of the galactic connection, the Federation of Light and so on. We can see that they're guiding us or helping us spiritually. But back then, it was a little bit different, just 3 years. So I began to see, wow, there's quite a connection. So
They were talking to you in relating to your work, right?
Basically, they were relating to my work, yeah. But my work and certain soul contracts. But the thing that was guiding me also was that connection to the galactics. And that itself was a guide. The fact that spirituality and galactic beings are closely connected. And that led me to a conference, another conference in Melbourne, on a place not far from Melbourne, called the Star Family Conference. This was in February 2018. I decided I needed to go and find people who were also considering themselves to have connections with the stars, since I had gone to Peru and found I had a connection. So I went, and I was a little bit late to this conference. The first speakers one of the early ones was a father and son team. I hadn't heard of them. I wasn't that interested in their session. The names were Stephen and Evan Strong, and they were talking about a sacred Aboriginal site in Australia, and a connection that had to Egypt, and also a connection to galactics. But I came late and I missed that. But I did manage to connect with Evan Strong, the son. And I said to Evan, I was maybe keen to see one of the sites because they were taking people occasionally to go and see the sites. One of the sites is New South Wales. And Evan said, that's fine, just connect with me on Facebook. And if you want to go to see the site, this was in Gosford in New South Wales, we can arrange it if there's a tour group going. I say tour group, but it's a spiritual group of people going. That's how I connected with Evan. Mind you, Evan has a lot of connections on Facebook. But over time, I went to the conference, I got some things out of the conference that was good. I made connections and I felt stronger on my path, and my work path began to get clearer and clearer. And I changed my work away from very traditional corporate law to law that was helping people more, to corporations that are acting more responsibly and ethically. So that was also helping me shape up my purpose. But back to this connection with the Strongs. So I was keeping an eye on what they were doing because now I was friends with Evan, and every now and again his stuff would pop up on my Facebook feed, and they were getting more and more and more into Aboriginal artifacts and other artifacts that had how shall I say, so-called unknown origins, or origins that couldn't be easily explained through our conventional means. And this is kind of interesting. Fast forward, my work became more and more connected to, like I said, human rights, planetary rights, and also Indigenous people's rights. So that part of their work, Stephen and Evan, they're part of their work that is connected with Indigenous, because Stephen himself and Evan, they have Indigenous or Aboriginal blood. That part became more and more central to my own work. I should explain that Stephen and Evan are so-called amateur, well, we say amateur, but they're not amateur, archaeologists. So their work is to find out more and more and more about the real origins of Aboriginal people, First Nations people.
And the father was also raised, he was adopted, right?
You may know more than me if that's the case with Stephen. Sorry, I actually haven't gone deeply into Stephen's background. It will be on their site, forgottenorigin.com, which is an amazing site full of information. Yeah. Anyway, so fast forward, this was in February 2018 that I connected with them, and then let's go forward to 2019. When everything was kind of speeding up for us. 2019 was also a really big year. End of 2019 was a time I was having a lot of tumultuous time in turmoil in my work, still trying to find my path. I had a dream. I went back to my notes, and it was the 12th of November, 2019. A couple of weeks before that, Uluru had finally been closed to tourists climbing Uluru, which used to be everybody would go to Uluru and climb it. And there's a deep hurt to the local Anangu people to have people climbing up on Uluru. So they finally closed it in October 2019. 2 weeks later, I had a dream, and in my dream, there was some body came to me. It was a man, or seemed like a man. I can't really remember him clearly. He was white. I don't know if his skin was white, or it was the body paint that Aboriginal people use to paint themselves. Sometimes it's white. But he came to me and he said that Uluru had been restored, right? And the Aboriginal spirit would emerge again in Australia. And at that time in Australia, we were beginning to have really bad bushfires. At the end of 2019, start of 2020, it was our black summer.
Yeah.
And you know, many parts of Australia were burnt very badly. And he said the fires are purification, and they will be very bad. I woke up and I remembered it, and Uluru became very important to me. I didn't know anything at this point about what Stephen and Evan Strong were beginning to say about Uluru. A couple months later, one of our mutual friends, whom we met in Peru, wrote to me and she said, I want to connect you with somebody in Australia. He's looking for like-minded people, so can I connect you? Actually, it was the start of lockdown in Australia, so it must be March or April. I said, yeah, sure. So she, our mutual friend, she said, connected me to this fellow. I didn't know him, but he wanted to talk about spiritual issues and awakening and ascension. So she connected me with him.
Yeah.
And he sent me a message, and we set up a Zoom chat. And he said to me that, like, one of the first things he said to me was, I knew I had to connect with you when I saw your page on Facebook, because number one, you know Evan Strong, you're connected with him on Facebook. And number two, I had on my Facebook, because of my strong connection to Uluru, I had put my cover photo as Uluru. So he said, I knew I had to connect with you. So, well, okay, this is interesting. I should also say in that time, I had made a personal visit to Uluru. I needed to physically connect to Uluru. And I also went to Kata Tjuta, and I want to say something about Kata Tjuta. I didn't know at the time that I went to Kata Tjuta, which is not far from Uluru, that that's a men's place. I've since learned that women shouldn't go to Kata Tjuta. It's not good for us, because Aboriginal traditions, as I understand it, there's men's business and there's women's business. So it's actually, women should not be there. The Aboriginal people have made it so that the part that tourists go to, it does not harm us, as little as possible harms us. But really, my understanding is women should not go there. Anyway, so back to the connection with Uluru. So I was now connecting with this new friend. He had said, you know Evan Strong by Facebook. Your cover photo is Uluru. I need to talk to you. He said, you will be really interested in what Stephen and Evan Strong are starting to say. I said, okay. He said, they're having a live, an internet seminar on Sunday. You should get a ticket and listen. So I did. And then they started talking, joined the conference, or the live internet stream. And they started talking about the Uluru prophecy. And they started talking about the 21st of December. And Stephen was talking about the magic box that had been delivered or had come from the Pleiades and needed to be activated on the 21st of December with people who have pure heart, no fear. And ding, it went on. Oh, I gotta do this. I gotta do this. So I booked my ticket to Uluru. Now, to be really clear, there was always planned a very secret traditional ceremony at Uluru for the local Anangu people. It's indigenous, not our business. Our job, and what Stephen was saying, our job as people with open hearts and good intentions was to give energy, to help open up that magic box. And I wanted to be one of those people as close as possible, following protocol to the physical rock, to the earth, to help. So I organized my flight, organized the accommodation, found out there was this beautiful conference. That's my battered, folded up copy of the conference. So I'm going to be there. I booked the accommodation, I booked the flight, I forgot to book the conference. I had it in my head, I'm going to book the conference, but I didn't. Then flight got canceled because of COVID lockdown. And I thought, I'm not going to go to Uluru now, so I totally forgot about the conference. I said, at some point, I'll cancel the accommodation because they closed the borders. Melbourne was in total lockdown. All of the other states and territories closed the borders all around July, August. And I figured I was just going to, I thought I could drive to Uluru, but it's like, 2 days, 3 days from Melbourne. No, that's okay. I will stay here in Melbourne and do the ceremony. That's what I thought. Resigned myself to it. Then we came out of lockdown in Melbourne in October, November, and and then the borders opened. So the Northern Territory, where Uluru is, opened up its borders to Melburnians on the 30th of November. We no longer had to quarantine. There had been a 14-day quarantine requirement that was removed. And I said, right, now I better sort myself out. Took my sweet time. Finally, I called up the accommodation. I said, well, I just want to check. I've still got my accommodation. I was still thinking of maybe canceling. And the resort in Uluru said, yes, we've got your booking. Do you know the resort is full? Are you sure you want to cancel this? Think about it again. You've got a beautiful room, etc. It's going to be a great time. Oh, okay. So I said, all right. I looked at the website, the airline website. There were flights. So I managed to rebook my flight using my flight credit from the cancel flight. Now with the conference. I went to check the conference website, fully booked, oversold. So I thought, well, maybe I could just go there. And maybe even if I don't join the conference, and I could see that even Stephen and Evan were lined up to speak. Well, even if I don't go to the conference, I'll be in Uluru. But I did write to the conference organizers, Catherine and Mick, and I said, I'm going to be there anyway at that time. If there's a last minute spot, just let me know. I didn't hear from them. Turns out they were on their way there to driving to Uluru. So I organized everything, decided to go. And then just like a few days before, they came back to me and said, we're in Uluru now, and yes, we can give you a last minute spot. So I was like, thank you. And then I read, which is something I sent to you, a lady called Valerie Barrow, who channels someone, I think, who might be from Andromeda or is Arcturian. I'm sorry, Valerie, if I've got that wrong. But she had been guided by him, the being she channels, to discuss another prophecy about Uluru. That at this 26 years ago, she wrote that there would be a gathering in Uluru, and whoever needed to be there would find ways to be there. And we would connect with ETs. And it was a very important time. And we all felt this was the time that she had been talking about. And I felt like I had been one of those people who needed to be there, because the Star people, she said, will find a way to tell whoever needed to be there. They will find a way to tell us, and to make sure that we were there. So I felt it. I got to Uluru. And the energy, you know, I have, the first time I went to Uluru in January, I felt the energy. But this time it was off the charts. And you know, Docha, I'm not a super sensitive person. I'm very, my lawyer training or whatever it is, I live a lot in here, not necessarily in here. And then I got to Uluru and I went, oh my God, my fingers. I can feel the energy. It's coming into my hands. It's going down my legs. It was amazing. And then there was this fuss about COVID intruding on our beautiful space. That's okay. The authorities decided that anyone coming from Sydney had to self-isolate and get tested, even if they were in Uluru. So that put a dampener on things, and it really kind of upset people a little bit. So we were beginning to feel like, you know, whatever was dark in this world is still trying to prevent the 21st of December from happening, the Uluru solstice ceremony. At the end of the first day of the conference, which was the 20th, Stephen came to make an announcement, and he said he had been given some misinformation about the time of the solstice ceremony. He had been previously told it would be 9 o'clock. Turns out it was 7:30. And so we had to get out the message. He was even having trouble putting it up on his page. We got out a message. And again, it felt like last-ditch effort by whatever has been trying to prevent this. But we knew, I felt anyway, it was like you had said in your beautiful post on social media, it's done. It had been done at that point. There was some fuss over where we would actually do our part of the ceremony. As I said, what happened at the Rock was for Anangu people to look after, because they're the custodians of the Rock and the knowledge. Where we would do our ceremony was up in the air as well. Finally, we were taken to a location in Ulara, the town of the resort. So no, not the park, the national park, not the Rock, but not far. We did our ceremony on the 21st of December. The time was supposed to be 7:32 p.m. exactly. And that was not far from the time of sunset. And we sat, we made several circles. So now I'll tell you about the beautiful ceremony. We made several circles because there's 300 of us or so. And Stephen had arranged these sacred rocks that he had collected, very special rocks. And he had arranged them in a way to channel our energy from the circle into the rocks in the circle, concentrate to the Rock, Uluru.
Yeah.
And we had the start of it, you know, we had Stephen reminded us, he actually smeared us with some ashes that were sacred from his elder, and he reminded us. I mean, we had some criticism from Indigenous people for intruding in their sacred business, but I think Stephen was super in terms of reminding us to respect his tradition and the tradition of the local people there, and yet, you know, reminding us also that spirit knows no color. You know, this is about all of us coming together for our future. So he did everybody with the sacred ashes, And he said, now we're in sacred ceremony. Okay, everybody turn off your mobile phones. And then we closed our eyes. I was sitting directly facing west, and the sun was setting directly in front of me. And I closed my eyes and I just sensed love. And you know, there is actually a part of me that has come here for this, came here for this from a past life. And so she, from an Atlantis lifetime, was coming through extremely strongly. She was sending as much energy as possible. She said, this is what I'm here for. This is to fix Atlantis. And boom, you know, everything coming, everything, every feeling of love and joy and, you know, compassion was sent from all of us. And then 10 minutes later, somebody, might have been Stephen, said, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the ceremony. And I opened my eyes, and the skies beforehand had been gray and overcast. The sun had been setting below the clouds. And I opened my eyes, and the sky was pink. Beautiful pink. And there was this patch of light that was opening up. And this new friend of mine said to me, look, the patch is opening up further and further, larger and larger. And you see this blue I'm wearing? Well, it was like more brilliant than this blue. It was coming through. A blue, maybe like this blue, was coming through.
Yeah.
Was coming through. And we all saw it. The sun had set. Where was that blue coming from? Through the pink clouds. Pink is love. Blue is from the Pleiades. We had, you know, two beautiful people came and spoke in the circle. They were invited. Anyone who wanted to come and speak in the circle were invited to say what they felt and saw. And these two beautiful people came. And the lady said that she had been called to step back and to hold space for everyone. And she saw around our group warriors from every tribe. And she had sensed angels above us, and she heard them. And then right after she spoke, another gentleman came into the circle, and he said, sister, the warriors, I saw them too. And he said behind the warriors was beings from everywhere. They were all there, right? He said it went on and on and on. We were definitely not alone. And then we just, you know, we sang, we toned. Someone had brought, I think there was definitely healing bowls, and someone had an amazing gong. And we just came as one. You know, the circle was cleared of the sacred rocks, and we came in as one. We were one. And we did it. Like we knew already in the middle of the meditation. At a certain point, I already knew we did it. It was a brand new world. Yeah. So then, you know, I was not really there. People were talking to me on the bus on the way back. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to talk, but I'm not really here. We had a second meditation in the morning for the conjunction, because that was the solstice. Then we had the conjunction. It was 3:30 our time. It was also powerful, but much more subdued. And the next morning we woke up, went back to the third day of the conference, which was, I'm forgetting my days, it's Tuesday, the 22nd. And we had some wonderful confirmations. So Stephen and Evan spoke to us again, and they showed us some photographs. Not just what we saw that blue, but there was in Croatia. Croatia is an important spot. Some say there's a kind of Garden of Eden there. There was a picture of plasma coming down from the sky.
I saw that.
Yeah. And lots of other confirmations from people writing all over the world. There was a blue sky and a moon in Atlanta in Georgia. Same blue, same blue.
Yeah.
The next day in the conference, we had another confirmation. So there's a lovely couple named Pierre and Cullen Smith. I think it's Smith. They synchronized with an energy from the Pleiades. And they said, someone asked them the question, they were actually beaming in from the States. Someone asked them a question about the blue that we saw, or had anything to do with them. And they said, the Pleiadian group that was coming through said, yes, that was us. Anytime you see blue, it's the Pleiades, the Pleiadians, because that's how they express themselves in the blue color. It's a color of trust, because we all need trust. We need to trust our own wisdom and trust that it's unfolding. So that was a beautiful confirmation. They said, yep, that was them. And it will kind of continue, but I know, and the confirmation was coming through lots in the conference, that the shift, and Franco Di Nicola says this actually, the shift is that the energies are coming in. So like I said, that the lower part is cut off now, so that when we go back and forth, we won't go back into the lower part. Anyone who is dwelling in the lower part, well, if they want to try and continue to dwell there, they'll have to go. Yeah. And so from now on, it means that we've gone from like here to boom, to here. And any part of ourselves that was in the lower part is gone. I mean, it's an older version of us. So into the new, and we recognize this new version of us, and we also recognize it in other people. So anyone who's done anything to you in the past, or any old view perspective we have for others, don't assume that that's still them. They are also putting on their new version. So we don't project the old version onto them. We're all new now. And that new version of us is higher. So we're all going to exist in the higher spectrum of energies now. And like I said, coming back into Melbourne, I felt it. And the other thing that I felt really strongly about Uluru was like, it felt like a container of higher consciousness. In the past, when I would go to things like this or events like this, or even in Peru where you and I met, it was like, if you come out of the container, you're going to go back into real life, the matrix, and come down. But now it felt like we're bringing the container with us. That's normal now. What we had in Uluru, that energy is normal. And whoever wants to exist in that lower vibration, well, you're on the outside now. we are not on the outside anymore. We are the new paradigm. If you felt like a fringe dweller, like a black sheep, like an outsider, gone, gone, gone. You're the center now. You're
Yeah.
inside.
That's also kind of everything together. That's why I was tearing up, because I realized everything at once, you know, the connections, our connection, my connection to New Zealand, the connection to the Pleiades, because I found out about my connection with the Pleiades when I came back to Holland. So I'm stepping into my power, and I'm not wobbly anymore. This is who I am, and I stand in love. There is really nothing else but love. But
I got chills when you said that.
yes,
Chills, yeah.
but because I'm one of those that's always been the black sheep, asking to be validated, I've always been leaning over to support, leaning over to ask for permission, leaning over to adjust myself all the time. And I have stopped doing that. And I've done that in the past months on my own, going deep and deep and cleaning and cleaning. Because a lot of people are like, yeah, solstice, this is, you know, this is it now finally. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to celebrate, but I am going to celebrate because I've worked for this for years. And I'm going to celebrate with my sisters, with the ones that I know have the right to celebrate. And at the same time, I feel a sadness because there are people, I've been noticing there are people that are reading those books and talking these talks, and they have no idea the shadows that they're walking around with, that they're projecting around them. They have no idea. And it's like, yeah, but now it's done, and it's all gonna be fine. And they're lashing out, and I'm thinking, you need to learn how to stand on your own feet. You haven't even started yet.
So there's one thing where you reminded me, talking about the people who think, it's gonna be like that. It reminded me of what Stephen Strong said about the path splitting. Now we know there's the bifurcation that's been occurring with the polarization, but there is actually the path now splitting in terms of those who will walk the lower vibration path and those of us who have chosen the ascension in our own body path. The lower path will disappear. They're choosing ascension by death, really, you know, or in death they will continue on the wheel of karma, reincarnation. But he said the path will grow further and further and further apart, so that if you're on the path that's headed to the lower, it will be harder and harder to come across to the path that's heading for the higher. You know, you can kind of start now, it's easier, but you know, you better work on your own stuff. Like you said, the shadows, stop projecting. You better work on your own stuff so you can come over and come with us to the new earth. He said at some point, and I do actually think he's right, at some point those of us those on the lower are going to look across and go, oh my goodness, the hippies were right. You know, like they were right. That was the past. And I think those who think it's going to be easy from now on are a little bit fooled, because it's not necessarily going to be easy in the sense of all of the troubles will disappear. It will be easy in the sense that we have much more support, and we will begin to bind around each other for support. Like, we will come together, and really the oneness of the communities that we build are now going to come to the fore. So in that sense, it's going to be easier. But the darkness is going to take like, they're going to go wriggling and squealing. And there's
Everything
a lot more work.
Everything is under a magnifying glass.
Totally. Yeah.
So if you're in your negativity, it's going to smack you in the face straight away.
Yeah, so that you can come over.
But if you've been doing the work, it's like, oh shoot, yeah, I need to come back to myself. But because you've done that, because you've done the work, you also know that you just need to align with your higher self, and immediately you're back on track. That's what I've been experiencing for the past few weeks.
Yeah.
Moving into this transition is really like, wow, when things are coming up, it's like it's resolved within 20 minutes, you know.
Yes.
You sit down with it and you move through it, but it's like, you know, it's like a little bump, and you move through it. There's no dark tunnels anymore for the ones that have been training, have been looking inside, have been going inwards. It's just like, oh, something's out of alignment. It's like, okay, dive in and whoop, and you're out of it again. But if you've never done that, it's like you're being smacked in the face, and then you repeat your behavior, and it's like, you did that to me, and that happened to me, and that happened to me. And it's becoming more and more like people are grabbing onto, because before they were leaning.
Yeah.
There's nothing to lean on anymore.
Yes, there's nothing to lean on anymore. I agree. It's about doing your own work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's about doing your own work. And you're right about the quickness. How quickly we can clear things now. Also, it's by being objective, by being the observer, and understanding that it's going to unfold for the highest good. So anything that might cause a discomfort, I now say, all right, it's causing me discomfort because of whatever insecurity or old feeling that I have. I'll clear that. And then as to the future events that might unfold from this thing that's causing me discomfort, I invite the way forward for it to unfold to be for the highest good. That means whatever happens is going to be as it, was intended. And everything then just flows from there. It's just the way we're going to live from now on, I think. We're just going to live with more allowance. So I had a couple of interesting things happen on the last day of the conference. So Pia and Cullen, who channeled from the Pleiades, they said, the Pleiadians said, it's not our responsibility to, they were really quite clear about this. It's not our responsibility to guide others through trying to convince them. More than ever. It's really about individual choice. Our responsibility is to raise our own vibration. Our prime responsibility now is to ascend. And that will be an example, and people have already
Yeah.
made the choice at soul level whether they're coming or not. So if you're the example and they've made the choice at soul level that they're going to join the higher path, quote unquote, then they'll come. They'll see you as the example. It'll resonate with them. They'll be inspired by you, and they'll come along. If they're not, no matter how much you persuade, pull, chide them, they're not coming if they made the decision at the soul level to go off on the lower path. So all we do now is raise. Clean ourselves, clear ourselves, heart, body, our minds, let go of the egos, and bring in more light. Bring in, because now we're just carrying it like nothing I've ever experienced before. With the codes, I mean, there were meditations in that conference. I keep saying I'm not sensitive, I'm not a this, I'm not a that, but my God. The codes that were coming in, I could feel it. So that happened, was in one of the meditations we did with a lovely lady called Sonia Grace, who also came in from Arizona, I think. As we meditated with her, I also did feel come into me another aspect. So I was sitting in meditation, and what entered me, totally welcome. Okay, I mean, this is not an unwelcome entity. It's an aspect of me. So the 21st is kind of like, that important purpose. I can't explain how important that purpose is, and it's like lifetimes, particularly the Atlantis lifetime, coming and saying, need to do this. Okay, so that purpose is kind of done, kind of, but the important part is done. And then it's time for another aspect to enter, which is to do a certain kind of work, which I'm feeling my way towards. I think I know what it is, but I feel more and more into it. It was a male energy. It came in, and I felt myself sitting up straight, and then the energy came in. My eyes were closed, and it did this. It looked around, and it felt itself into me. And so what is this body like? Let's feel. Let's get comfortable. And did that. And I said, yeah, okay. This body is comfortable enough. And then it presented to me and said, now if you need me, I'm here. And this is a wise kind of counselor energy. If I need to give advice, this is the lawyer coming through. The true kind of lawyer, okay? Not
lawyer. Oh my
lawyers.
God. Oh, goosebumps.
And he said, I'm here now. When you need me, I'll come. So now I have access, because it must be part of my work here now to start on that. And like I said, I'll feel my way into it.
Yeah.
So personally, we are now preparing in our own way. That's my way, but in our own way, we're preparing for whatever we need to do in this new phase.
Yeah.
I also wanted to add one thing about the magic box that some of us figured out already. Now, that magic box that Stephen was talking about.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, well, it's time now. On the last day of the conference, he says, time now to tell you what it is. Well, it's Uluru. It's Uluru. If he said if he had talked about a magic box, if he had talked about the rock, and people would have difficulty, sending energy to this rock, like they might have difficulty thinking of a natural thing. In this time when we're all conditioned to tales like Lord of the Rings, Stephen said, it was easier to focus on something like a box, or like a ring, like a box. So we talked about a magic box. But a magic box is Uluru. It looks like a box. And the magic is inside. This has been waiting there. It came from the Pleiades, thrown in from the Pleiades. Inside has been the magic all along.
I thought you were going to tell me something new.
There you go. There you go. And we were all kind of nodding, and Stephen said, yeah, okay, most people figured it out. Some people hadn't, but most of us had. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the magic is here now.
No, I wasn't even thinking like, oh, I know what it is, or I wasn't even thinking about it. But now you say she'll tell you what it is. I'm like, oh, that's probably something I don't know.
No, it's like, of course. But that's what it is. I mean, our remembering is so strong now, right? Remembering is we know.
It's like opening the black box is the same thing as saying we're activating.
Correct. Totally. The activation of DNA, because it's inside us. It's
Exactly.
just waiting. Just waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the timing aspects of things now are just so amazing. This whole idea of like when the time is right. So what you were saying earlier about time feeling fluid, now we're being guided to do things when it's right, when the energies are right. Mm-hmm. Not like 10 o'clock, I got to do this or whatever, right? So just like the time of the ceremony was a particular time of the energies, or exact time of the solstice. The time when we meditated for the conjunction was the highest peak of the conjunction, and so on and so forth. We'll now do things totally guided by energetic or cosmic time, which is going to be beautiful. I mean, I like it. I live now, going back to my work, I left my job as a lawyer with a law firm, and I fulfill what I need to for my clients, totally fulfill the obligations, but on energetic time. So it's not like I get up in the morning at a certain time from whatever time to whatever time I have to be at my desk. I do things feeling more and more, I'm not perfect about it, but feeling more and more of when is the right time to do whatever for whoever.
Yeah.
And also the intuitive way of communicating with people who are, so-called unawakened, is to deliver the heart message. And now we're so empowered to do it. Deliver the heart message. So I've been connecting with my clients in a heartfelt way. And those who don't get it, well, we're not meant to work together. But those who do get it, even if they are so-called unawakened, wow, they're so receptive. Because there's no more separation of my work and my personal. There's no more, I'm the lawyer now and I'm Geraldine now. It's there's various aspects that I can call on, like the aspect that came in, that I can call on to do a certain job, but we're integrated. Totally integrated. And that's just a way of being from now on. And it will get stronger and stronger and stronger. Yeah, and learning to ask for the help. Just do so naturally without any shame, without any feeling of I can't ask that person, which is one of my issues. Just naturally to let another person help me. It's gonna be, it is beautiful. It's here. I can't even express how grateful I am that we stepped into it. The earth that we were preparing, the time that we were preparing, is here, totally here. No more of the, like you said, step into our power and greet it, step into our power and make it. If we want to go back to being a victim, we can do that. But we now have the knowledge of who we are, so we don't need to do that.
It's almost like we've been on a road, a bumpy road for years. And all of a sudden, we're on the highway.
Yeah. There was a lady who gave a beautiful testimony at the end of our conference, whose husband awakened during the ceremony. She was at the ceremony, solstice ceremony. He had not come along because he was coming to Uluru for her, but he wasn't going to join in. And while she was at the ceremony, he was guided to come and find her. And not only did he come and find her, but he took photographs of what he was seeing on the way, which was like a cloud over Uluru, and the blue light sucking up darkness, and then it moved over to Kata Tjuta and it sucked up. He saw this, a totally unspiritual person up to that point, saw the darkness coming out from Kata Tjuta, and off it went. That's what he saw. He came for his wife because the connection, it was his time to realize this, and their connection was strong. And she had mentioned that she had even put down her rings, including her wedding ring, on the ground in front of her. And he came. So he came for a few reasons.
Wow.
He came to give us a confirmation, to show us he was not at the ceremony. We weren't even allowed to turn on our phones during the ceremony, so of course we couldn't take any photographs. But he had come, so he was able to take photographs. Yeah. And now they're going to have an interesting journey together. So that's going to happen for all of us. All of us with loved ones who have chosen that path to come on the higher path. Yeah. But the connections are everywhere.
Yeah.
The signposts, now we look back, we can see, why did I want to do that? Why did I choose to go there? Why did I? Now, as I write my story, I can see them. Mm-hmm. And there are, of course, more happening, and maybe I'm not aware of them now.
For sure.
It all unfolded perfectly.
Are you having any projects?
So my projects from now on, what I'm feeling my way towards I'm not Australian by birth, I'm Malaysian. So I'm not white, I'm not black.
Yeah.
To come and try and help with my legal knowledge, new legal, and maybe whatever needs to be mended from the old ways, old meaning the old lower ways, and try and help. There's a new thing coming through. It has to do with new organizations, new enterprises. And I'm feeling my way towards how traditional people organize themselves. There's a lot of knowledge there, how they organize their societies and how they work together, that we can learn to build up how we organize ourselves. And so what we call a company, what is that new form of the company? Now, what's the new collaborative form? There's a lot of traditional knowledge, I feel, that can help us to create that new company form. So that's the task I'm feeling my way into now. Okay, well, so I'm gonna say, sign off. I love you so much.
Thank you very, very much.
We did it. Okay, my darling.
We're on track.
Yeah, we always were.